Hey, basis. I think I'm going to do this video again in the future. I don't love the lighting here, but I also don't care that much about like perfect lighting. I'm a uh, progress over perfection kind of guy. So, in true to that, I already don't like because it's like the light's coming in here and it's like new light in this room that I'm not seeing at this time of year. So, basis. Basis is important to talk about because it won't make you sound like an idiot without knowing it. And there's a few of the other terms that we've gone over that don't make you sound like an idiot. But if you do use them, you certainly come across more like a thought leader. So that term is basis, and there's a few different types of basis. I'm going to go through the basis and how it's used, and then work backwards to what it is. You can say purchase basis, purchase price. Like uh, all in basis. That would be how much you all in for, like, you bought it for X, you put a certain amount of debt on it, and you also put in a bunch of rehab. So that's your all in basis. Then you have debt basis. How much debt do you have on the property? What is your equity basis? So so the way that you can understand this, I think you're putting it together what it actually is. It's like the amount you have in for the category you're talking about. Obviously, if you say all in basis, you're like, how much is the total, I guess, amount of capital stack all in that you have put into the property. That's your all in basis. But you can start talking quickly. And I use basis quite a bit actually, because it lets you isolate to reference terms and reference concepts more quickly. Meaning, okay, so what's the debt basis on the property? That would be if you have a $10 million deal and you ask that question, you want to find out, like, is it $7 million? And then if you said, what's the debt basis per unit? Do you see how you can start like understanding, uh, like from just discussing quickly a per unit basis? Because if somebody's talking in per unit, and that is this one, I'm looking at the classroom. Is that in there? It is. I guess it's doors per unit. I guess that's more of a price per pound, price, like, but like I use everything. I speak in price per unit a lot. Some investors do not. Anyway, debt basis per unit. If you had 100 units for 100 a unit purchase basis, then you had 70,000 debt basis per unit, you can ask, like, okay, so how much did you put in rehab? And if they say $1 million, you can quickly in your head say, oh, okay, so your all-in basis is basically 100 plus 10. Your all-in basis per unit is 110, and you have 70,000 per unit debt basis. Got it. Okay, like, do you see how you can start kind of seeing the graph in your head? And it just allows you to speak quickly. So it's not necessarily not sounding like an idiot. It just allows you to speak quickly and understand the concepts and frames of what you're trying to get after. Are you looking for the debt, the equity? What's the equity basis on it? Because think about this. Okay, all right, we just did a refinance and we bought it for 100 a unit basis. We have a 100 unit purchase basis. We did purchase it with $70,000 per unit debt basis. We put in about $10,000 in rehab per unit, and we made it worth 140 a unit now. And then you would ask, okay, so on the refinance, like, what's the new debt basis? And you can start to oh, you're going to return any capital? Like, what's the equity basis? Because then it would be like, oh, okay, like the equity basis was obviously a down payment of 30%, whether the rehab came from the liquid capital or the banks. And then there was probably some other fees and reserves. So if the equity basis is, say, you bought it for 100 a unit purchase basis, and then you put 70,000 a unit debt basis on it, it's conceptually possible to be, let's just use something big, 50,000 per unit equity basis. So you would take the debt basis 70 plus 50. You're all like your all in was 120, and you made it 140. a unit from a value perspective, you're now talking about a refinance where you're going to recapture some equity, and you can decide if you're going to return capital or not. You may be able to, and then your equity basis goes down. Do you see how I just said that? Like if you return capital, the equity basis goes down because you return capital. So now on your sale price later, you only have to repay a certain amount of equity because the equity basis was reduced by giving back some capital. Do you see how you can talk in a bit more of a basis frame? And it makes you sound semi-cool. I'm not very cool, but it can at least attempt to try to make me sound cool. And at least I get away with not sounding like an idiot.